I mean, this is really important, especially for the youth to understand, is that there is no such thing as a culture that makes something out of you. Culture only brings out what is there. Culture is shaped by individuals, and individuals are going to be what shape the culture in that order. And so we have a lot to say about society. We have very little to say about ourselves. And this is all a product of what happens to people when their consciousness becomes disembodied. They become more criticisms of other people. People begin to look at history from the perspective that they're the good person, and they never even thought for a second that potentially a vast majority of the people were on the side of Hitler. So these are great conversations to have, conversations that are not being had. And honestly, as somebody who works in coaching and specifies in healing and helping people bridge a gap between what they believe can be loved or cannot be loved, or even build a life, I've noticed that the most important component to helping anybody heal is that they cannot heal under a false premise. Now, there's something very dangerous about a false premise in the sense that they remove themselves from everything that is human. And at the moment, what I'm noticing with the youth and even in my clients is that for the much younger generation, I would say for my generation, age is probably going to be from 18 to 40. And you might go, well, that's not so young anymore. It's actually a question of what we've been influenced by. We have a lot to say about the culture and how narcissistic it is when we're forgetting about the individuals that accumulatively make up the culture itself, that the culture is only speaking to what is inherently human. Narcissism has been misclassified. And to be honest with you, you will start noticing something really terrifying, is that there's a lot of people who are saying and who are talking about these relationships that they're in and how highly narcissistic they are. And the nature of it is unfortunately true, that there's a lot more psychopaths, sociopaths, and narcissists than has ever been throughout human history. And this actually even goes to show that a lot of people in the psychological space aren't very wary of, which is what happens to people that do not integrate this part of themselves, assuming it to be a medical condition when it's not. It becomes a medical condition when people become weak with the characteristic itself. And so we have a split here. We have people that fundamentally reject that nature within themselves and people who unconsciously never address that nature at all. Both of them are becoming weak with the very thing that is intrinsically human. This is what we call dark nature and exists across the board for everyone. Now, there is something very fascinating about dark nature. It's not just a question of what you've been exposed to about yourself. Unfortunately, the culture will reveal all of what we are. And the people that are above the culture or out of the culture are the people that have integrated the very thing that it sought to indulge. We often have a lot to say about these human characteristics, but we do so little in order to integrate them, making the world a better place, and not only that, providing a legacy to our children that's not the inherent rejection of these characteristics. Because I promise you, if you want to run to somewhere in the Midwest and hide under a bridge, and then finally your children get an iPhone, and then they experience any of these things, they will be taken and seduced by it the second they touch it. It's the nature of what happens to Sleeping Beauty. She touches the spindle, the one thing that her father tried to hide her from, the princess. And of course, that's a metaphor for everyone. And so you don't make people strong by removing all spindles. You better get them close to their dark nature, which is maleficent. And this is exactly what's happening, and it's showing up in people's relationships. It's creating a distorted understanding of psychology, a distorted understanding of emotions, because the dark nature itself will still function and will even utilize the emotions as a means to an end. What makes dark nature is selfishness. And by the way, there's no unconditional love without it. We're at a point in human history where we're beginning to recognize that it's not the society itself more than these are aspects of our humanity, and we have an obligation to integrate them. And by the way, in a lot of ways, it's going to be the only way for there to be evolution beyond it, because living on the bandwagon of those who want to reject it only become weak with the nature, and there are even those who refuse to address it for themselves. Imagine you're in a world and you've been experiencing some of the worst malevolence that you ever have in your whole life. And it's something I speak about, is that the relationship scene is becoming progressively more and more destructive, to the point where I even question if whether or not people can be helped. And I start to scratch my head and I begin to question, what exactly is the purpose of integrating your dark nature if it's not to elevate your consciousness about who you are, and in that pursue something that we call goodness? That there's a self-implied righteousness that a lot of people have. They feel that goodness is the opposition of evil, or at least their perceived understanding of evil, which so conveniently lines up with everything they don't want to face about themselves. So the question of what it is to be a good person is immediately removing yourself from your juvenile interpretation of it, but opening yourself up to a truth that might potentially mean that you might need to be a monster in order to say it. Now, even me, I was talking about this with my brother, was so much of what was under this message, for use of a better word, or this part of me, was pain and hurt and wounds. And it took me on a journey of returning to my innocence. And we have these stories in our culture, but we're forgetting what really helps a person is one they can get to the truth of themselves by facing the worst of themselves. It's almost like they're not trying to protect themselves from any horror that they can manifest or any person that they can be. It's almost like they're actually aimed towards goodness. It's not the refusal or the rejection of darkness. It's the understanding that it's the very foundation for any height that we seek to reach. It's a fundamental truth of our humanity, and in that, if there is no elevation of consciousness, there's no love. So for me, it always used to become a question of how can I get power? Let me tap into my untapped darkness. And then as I started growing up and realizing the things that I really valued, it said, how can I have real love? Because the nature of that's going to have to be with something that's true, and I better have somebody see all of those parts of me, and I better not live under any false impression. So much to the point where I've even discovered certain truths about me that if you said them out loud, most people would run away because they're probably not understanding the nature of a person that's willing to face that part of themselves, is truly willing to become a good man. I was never really given the tools to face that growing up, and as somebody who's deeply manipulative, I only had the unconscious interpretation of it. Because the same thing that makes me manipulative is also what makes me deeply influential. And then it made me realize, well, I better be fortified with a deeper value other than just survival, because I promise you, I become a hell of a punk when I was aimed towards nothing, when I was aimed towards my self-preservation. That there was a certain point that not only did it help me integrate the darkest parts of myself, it helped me quantify what I can value. And that's a real question, especially in the world nowadays where most people have identifications, not things that they actually value. And I'm sure you could understand the nature of why there are so many narcissistic relationships. It's because there's so many unconscious people in a culture that likes to feed into our nature without us doing anything to integrate it. We have all of our judgments and everything to say about what is us, but we're forgetting the most important part, which is a person that's willing to face that part of themselves, is willing to aspire towards goodness, because then why the hell would you? I had to find the part of myself that enjoyed manipulating. Right, say it out loud. To find the part of myself that liked being selfish. To find the part of myself that enjoyed lying. There's certain parts of us that, we just go, no, I'm not gonna look, I'm not gonna look, I'm not gonna look. And then of course, that's exactly what your survival mechanism would want you to do, which is, why the hell does one look at a reality, especially if it's going to induce grief and loss and potentially fear? Why would you want to question the integrity of that and even the integrity of yourself? Well, you better believe in something much larger than you. But ultimately, that's a question for the individual to come closer to, which is, do you live for anything more other than your self-perseverance, your self-preservation? And that's the ultimate question. And the question of what you value leads you to one question, which is, do you value truth the way that you say that you do? And ultimately, are you willing to open up to who you can be? And potentially what you've seen about yourself and those that have hurt you is the beginning of getting to the pain, integrating all of the hidden capacity that you've had your whole life, and in that transforming, but not on some sort of sanctimonious throne of you're better than anybody else. I would say that reality, if anything, is probably one of the most humility-inducing experiences of all existence, because maybe you could live as yourself, and that's why you're here. Humility in the sense that there's a lack of ego, that you could be returned to an essence, that there's a part of you that is called to be brought to this world, that's exactly what you're here to bring, and you could open yourself up to that vulnerability, and finally, for once in your life, not be self-obsessed. Because the part of ourselves that is selfish is the very part of ourselves that can love. It's scary. It's not easy to face the shadow, to integrate the darkest parts of ourselves. And that's really what I'm starting to feel a lot more compassion for, which is, I feel that in a lot of ways, we've become unconscious of what we are as human beings. We're closer to monsters than anything else. And that's not exactly an evaluation of the person, or what makes a person different, or so to say, better. In a lot of ways, consciousness or even self-consciousness is terrifying. Realizing yourself in existence. Being a pioneer in your legacy. To really be somebody who's changed or transforms. Seeing what it's done to you and potentially being able to go through the pain, to not make it so much about how you're better than those who have hurt you, but to become in touch with the very thing that can hurt. Direct it towards goodness. And it's interesting because how the hell can a person get to these parts of themselves, especially if they are not emotionally connected. And so this brings me back to the compassion part, which is you get more and more people functioning unconsciously, especially in intimate relationships. They often do the worst things to the people that they hold closest to them. And now to think that that's not a complete and total way to turn people against themselves and against each other, against man and woman, and a manifestation of this is people becoming naive to what they are as human beings. If you could face it, then you could integrate it. And if you could integrate it, then you could love it. It's the story of Beauty and the Beast. It's a story of love that translates. It's the woman that's able to love the monster and in that transform him into a prince, and then to understand the nature of what the hell is it to be a king. And if it does not have the bedding of what it is to be a beast, then don't even bother. I don't know what the hell that is. We've become so easily seduced in society where you just need another good-looking person to look you in the eyes and tell you some things that you like to hear, and you're not even connecting with that person because the idea of connection requires too much vulnerability and too much selfishness to realize who it's really for. I just had a client today and it made me realize this is what I'm telling them. Now, whether or not they can close the gap for themselves to really see who they are and what that is and what Carl Jung was really onto when he started talking about the shadow and potentially somebody not only being accountable to their own life but to their ancestry. To take that kind of responsibility is to recognize and be grateful for life itself. You weren't just born into your existence, there was your ancestors before you, and all of them have made the collective choices, and then now you're here existing as you are, resisting the process of transformation, which is natural. It's natural. We're not fortified in that truth. We're taught to go against it. We're taught to find safety in lies. We're taught to look to people that don't conform to what we're afraid of in ourselves. We're taught to, stay a perpetual victim in search of good people, as people are really looking for the same trauma that hurt them, like as if they know any better. You've been raised by the blind and you're being begged to be seen, and then you're going to the blind people and that's all you know. I've noticed something interesting about the work that I do, the more that I do it, the nature of its foundational essence. It's a foundational essence. It's about the question of trajectory. It's the question of what a person is aimed towards. It is the question itself. When I talk about childhood traumas, you're talking about what shaped your consciousness in relationship to life. When we start talking about the shadow, we're talking about your ability to express your deepest truth and potentially to see the most horrifying truth in yourself. You want to tell people that you love in your life the truth, and then you better be willing to burn the falsehood away that stops you from doing exactly that. If there's anything that's missing is the necessity for reprimandation. To help someone be able to see themselves is the highest act of love. And it's one of the deepest needs that I've been able to understand in my own practice and in my own research, is that every individual needs to be seen. And those who won't will recreate the only scenario where they can be seen, in their own demise, in their own pain, in their own destruction. The unconscious manifestation of this is what makes people not look to their children to help them grow, but their children become a mere trophy piece, something to decorate. It's where they look to their husband or to their wife as nothing more than a mere trophy, not something to connect with. And by the way, this is the product of people becoming so removed from existence that they live under a false impression about who they are and what they're capable of. And you could start looking around your life, and I want you to look around, but look around and start with you. And when a person starts with them and they're willing to start with the darkest parts of themselves, the healing process is natural because you're not in resistance of everything that you are. You're looking to become strong with it. It's a difficult realization, especially if you've been somebody who's been hurt deeply or has experienced malevolence. There's only one alternative for that person: to see the part of you that is capable of doing that to others and be better.